Hello. Today is Thursday, the 11th of January 2018, and you're listening to Let's Drone Out. And I am joined by Andrew / Frank.
Hello.
Andy RC.
Hello.
Jonathan, I'm really sorry if I don't know your last name.
It's Nicholson from CAA. Hiya.
Hello. Yep. And he is from the CAA, and he's going to be answering questions and teaching us things. And I'm also joined by my wife, Tony, who for some reason is unavailable right about now, but he will jump back on. He's the one that goes bonjour and all that sort of stuff. He's basically Carl Pilkington, and I am Bright Until I Fly. Right, we have joined by in the chat. First person in the chat was Darmore1. We're nice to see you. Thank you for commenting on my and Andy's video that I forced Andy to do last night. Really sorry, Andy. Frank, now fishy. Zero's back in. Mr. Thrust. Mikey Dread. He's a hero because he's one of the $12 Patreons. You legend. So remind you, there's a Patreon, Let's Drone Out. Patreon.com/Let's Drone Out. And I'd like to thank all the Patreons that are helping sponsor us. We are $6 away from being able to pay the editor for next month. So if you do donate, we won't take any money. You'll just pay at the beginning of next month, and all the episodes will be edited and come out on time. So, right. So moving on, Frank's got a few things to start talking about the CAA.
We are really lucky to have Jonathan here. Thanks to Ash put us in touch from Droning On. So I think you two met at the CAA outreach down towards Bristol somewhere. I can't remember where it was.
That's it. Yeah, Compton Abbas. Yes, I've met him a couple of times actually. He's been at a few things we've been at, but yes, he was there. Yeah.
Yep. So unfortunately, he couldn't make it here tonight because he's busy taking apart the Bank of England and putting it back together or something. So instead, you've got us to deal with. But yeah, so I think because there's like a huge number of acronyms of different bodies of people. We've got BMFA, we've got BALPL, we've got Ofcom, we've got DFT, we've got EASA, and then we've got the CAA. How about starting off with sort of how do the CAA fit into the general, group of people that help manage the air?
The acronym alphabets, you mean?
Yeah.
How many of them there are. So Civil Aviation Authority, CAA, that's what we are. We're the domestic regulator for all civil aviation, if you like, whether that be British Airways, EasyJet, NATS, the air traffic people, Heathrow Airport, a hang glider, a paraglider, whatever it is. If it's UK stuff, we look after it. So I go back sort of a good few years now when we first made the drone regulations for the UK. There weren't any for Europe. We put them in place. You talk to the guys in the policy team who are still there. All they thought of was going to be huge drones flown for TV, film, the odd archaeological dig, something like that, bit of survey work. They honestly didn't think there was going to be anything else like this, certainly not FPV racing or anything like that. So put the first regulations in place. Since then, those have developed, and I guess we're sort of like the safety regulator, if you like, so helping to set the rules. We don't really enforce. We do a little bit of work about approving commercial operators. And one of my jobs is to try and run some of the education stuff for consumer users, the people buying them from Maplin, who, if you like, are buying the equivalent of a radio control car, but they're launching it into the air and don't perhaps realize it comes with a few other things that they need to think about that a radio control car doesn't. So that's what I've been doing for a couple of years now.
And it does seem to have gone quite well. I mean, it wasn't that many months / years ago that there was a story every week of Maplin's people kind of flying in the middle of the city, and now with the drone safe stuff, that seems to have done a pretty good job of kind of letting people know that actually you might want to check a few things first. So
Yeah, it's made a start. I wouldn't say we're completely there yet. I mean, I equate it to stuff like drink driving. So yeah, if you go back to the 1950s, there was huge amounts of drink driving, and gradually that has moved to a place where it's socially unacceptable and people don't do it. We've started that similar journey, if you like. It's a behavioural change thing. So yes, we're making an impact when we survey people. More people are aware of the drone code. More people who are now aware of what they shouldn't do. And I keep saying to people, this is all about common sense, basically. It's not rocket science. You know, we're not out to spoil people's fun. We basically want drones to have the future that they should have. But if people do stupid things with drones, that's when they get bad publicity. That's when MPs and ministers and others start to get involved, and that's when people, you know, stop things happening that should otherwise happen. So, you know, it's really important that people use their common sense and don't give drones a bad name, because they don't deserve it. But, you know, if people do keep doing stupid things, we are seeing still getting an increase in the numbers of pilots of other things in the air reporting drones getting too close to them. Now, undoubtedly, some of that is pilots reporting things that they always have reported, that they didn't know what they were, and saying it was a drone. But we also know, and we see evidence of people absolutely doing stupid things with drones near aircraft. And, you know, all right, it may not be an Airbus that has an incident with a drone, but helicopters and light aircraft, if you're, you know, I've spoken to auto gyro pilots and hang gliders, and they haven't got anything around them, you know, to protect them. And, you know, even the smallest drone in the face of a hang glider pilot is not going to be nice. Now, drones have the equivalent rights to share that airspace as any of those other people, but it is about sharing it and doing it responsibly. And, you know, you mentioned the Share the Air event we went to that Ash was at, and that was as much about getting hold of the private pilots and saying to them, these drone guys, you know, equal rights to be in the airspace with you, but, you know, it's got to be sensibly done, if you like.
Yeah. So how have you been sort of, you know, apart from the outreach events, have you been sort of working out how it should all work? So I think there was at least been a few sit downs with some people from the BMFA, I think from the FPV UK as well. So sort of how does that all work through then?
So we try and keep in touch with everybody that's involved, because obviously there's a lot of commercial guys out there as well whose livelihoods revolve around drones. So we try and keep in touch with all the people involved. Ultimately, the UK, from the UK perspective, a lot of what happens is driven either by the government or what will be driven by European regulations from EASA, the European Aviation Safety Agency, and we can talk about that in a minute if you want. But ultimately, it's about keeping those people in touch with what those other groups are doing, what the government's doing as far as changes to regulation, and then what Europe's doing as far as changes to regulation. What we do will be driven by what they do. So, you know, there's not so much about us changing the laws, about those people changing the laws, and then us helping everybody out there to understand what's going on.
Yeah, and you yourself, you've been focusing a lot more on the education side. Is there anything that like our listeners and other people that are interested in keeping the drone hobbying kind of available? Is there anything you'd suggest that we can do to help? I mean, do you run, or do you need like people to go out to schools or anything and teach?
Well, we need generally advocates everywhere. So, you know, the biggest thing, so when we first started looking at some of the YouTube clips that people were putting on that were absolutely, you know, stupid, and you know, people flying, when I say stupid, I mean things like flying a drone up to 3,000 feet in the southeast of England. it's that to me, as somebody who is involved in aviation and also wants to promote drones, is absolutely stupid. They can't see what else is going on around them. Yeah, you're looking purely, purely flying that drone then by what your camera's showing you. And you've no idea if a medevac helicopter is coming up behind your drone, especially when I've seen video of people flying them over fog. So, you know, absolutely crazy. So what we need is advocates throughout the community. So when we first started replying to videos like that, we got a huge stream in the YouTube things about F off CAA, you know, leave us alone, blah, 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 blah. Which, yeah, okay, fine. But now we see other drone users coming into people's YouTube feeds and actually saying, you know, you are threatening our hobby, you are threatening my livelihood. And people pay more attention to peer pressure and peer communication than they do from, say, the regulator standing there and going, you shall not do this, you know. So the more we can get that peer group to police itself and its own hobby and its own profession, and absolutely, yes, as well as that, it's about getting out and helping to educate things like local authorities, things like landowners, national trust, kids, everything like that, that people can show that these things have an amazing future, both for fun, as a hobby, but also as helping people. What we don't want to do is get to a situation where, you know, NHS and other people are already looking at the potential of moving human organs from hospital to hospital by drone. It would be amazingly quicker, more efficient, help loads of people. We don't want that scuppered by people using drones stupidly and then convincing people who don't understand that they think that is what drones are all about, and they write to their MP and go, you know, drones must all be banned, because of a few stupid people that then stop something really good happening.
Yeah. So I guess that's another good thing to look at, is sort of, you know, in the long term, you want to be getting sort of autonomous, you know, these beyond visual line of sight drones, like whether that's you know, hospital deliveries, or whether it's other sorts of deliveries or something else entirely, you know, like network rail doing surveys. I'm sure they'd rather have, you know, something doing that autonomously than having an actual full-size manned aircraft having to pay for the fuel for that. So in the long term, are we, because I mean, I think a lot of people are slightly worried that there's going to be a lot of airspace taken up by that, and there's not going to be a lot left for us. Is there any sort of idea of how everyone's going to be integrated into that?
There are many ideas about that. None of them actually have a real stranglehold yet to say that that will happen. You say long term, I don't think it's long term. I think it will happen much quicker than that. So I don't think we're a million miles away seeing micro drones flying around cities, monitoring traffic. You know, yeah, large delivery drones might be a little bit further away. The big things for us are making sure that the drones operating beyond visual line of sight can separate themselves from other airspace users. So absolutely, yes, everybody has an equal right to the airspace, but realistically, if it's a small drone and a fast military jet doing 200 miles an hour, you know, the jet pilot's not going to stand much chance of seeing a drone at the speed he's going. So we need to get to the situation where the technology advances beyond, say, a DJI that can stop itself flying into a tree, to getting to the point where a delivery drone or whatever drone that's flying autonomously can sense and avoid an RAF Typhoon jet flying through a valley in Wales, a parachutist coming down, which is only going one way, and he or she has got absolutely no control. They can't move out of the way. They are coming down, and that is it. So, you know, when a drone can do those things and they're not far off doing those things, that's when we'll start to see more beyond visual line of sight. I mean, at the moment, there's people out there trialing it and doing things with their permission to do tests. So it does happen, but for it to happen on a national scale where there's thousands of these things operating autonomously. That's one of the big things that needs to happen. The other big thing that needs to happen is literally working out some kind of air traffic system for them as well. And that won't be like we see at the moment, where you have one controller sitting at a radar screen physically talking to pilots. It obviously won't happen like that. It will be, again, an automatic network, but that's something else that needs to happen. There's lots of very clever people working on these things. It's just there's no solution. There's no ultimate solution yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's the guys up in Cambridge with Amazon working on something out there.
Yeah.
We've also got the site out in Wales where a lot of this is sort of stuff is going on, I think. Do you think, I mean, there was talk, I mean, we'll get on to the prospective drone bill in a minute, I'm sure, but I think as part of the announcements around that, there was mention of setting up other sites around the country that would be for testing these sorts of things in different situations. I mean, I think everyone in the hobby community, their ears perked up at that, because there was the sort of thing of like, if there's a site that's permanently set aside for that, might we get an eye in on the weekends?
Well, that would be between you guys and the people that were running the site, really. I mean, yeah, there's Park Aberporth, and the military have one as well. They're probably less likely to let you in. Yeah, it's between you and the landowners, really, and the people that run the site. The one thing I would say is they're going to be kept to a minimum. Airspace in this country is like it's worth a fortune if you monetized it, because the demand on it is huge. We're a very small country with a very big aviation industry. You know, there's more and more airliners flying. There's more and more commercial flights which want airspace. When we were at the Share the Air event, one of the things I said to all the private pilots is actually they and you have a lot in common, because you want airspace for fun, for hobby, etc., as they do, and together you're a much more powerful voice than separate against all the other people that want airspace. So I don't think we're ever going to see huge bits of airspace just segregated for drone use. You know, the Park Aberporth thing is pretty small, purely because there's so much other demand. Everything from that RAF Typhoon to the Qantas flight to the private pilot to the hang glider. There's a huge demand for our airspace. Yeah,
definitely. So if we do have a sort of mention of the prospective drone bill, before going immediately to there, sort of looking at what's happened in other countries around Europe. I mean, a lot of them are going for the 250 gram limit. I mean, that's happened in America and Russia as well, I think. And it sounds like that's something that's going to come into the UK.
You mean for registration?
For registration, yes. So, I mean, yeah, registration might, it sounds like it might become a thing. And then there's the question of how model flyers are going to, you know, maybe get grandfathered in around that. There's all sorts of questions about how that's going to work. Is that something that the CAA is the group that's sorting that out, or is that sort of something that the CAA is sort of just a voice in a bigger picture?
A bit of both. So we won't have the ultimate say for the UK. That will be the government. That will be the Department for Transport. They're the people that announced there would be registration and the drone bill and other elements. That didn't come from us. That came from them. But they have asked us for our views. So we will, you know, give them advice and views on what we think. Certainly on registration, we think it would be of use if it's tied to electronic identification. So if you said to me, here's an Excel spreadsheet with just a load of names and serial numbers on, that's not much use to me. You know, if we're talking about you know, being able to help that as an enforcement thing or a police thing, then, you know, you really need to have something where a policeman can hold up his iPhone or his Samsung or whatever and say, oh, that drone that's flying a mile off the end of Heathrow's runway at 500 feet is owned by, you know,
Joe Bloggs down the road.
Absolutely, yeah,
Oh.
yeah. If it's the case of, you know, so I mean, we've a drone involved in an aviation incident has never been recovered.
Yeah.
So, you know, having a serial number and tying it to a name doesn't help necessarily with that kind of issue. There's other things why the government might want registration, but for us, that's the key thing, if you like. Now, what I would say about model flyers and FPV guys, etc. So every time we mention it to government, to EASA, they are absolutely aware and anxious to avoid, you know, any knock-on effects that would affect those guys. So they're very, very aware. BMFA, the British Model Flying Association, have been with EASA as part of the working group looking at the European regs. So those bodies are absolutely aware that you guys exist, and from all the stuff they say to us, they don't want to stop you doing anything that you're already doing.
Are you sure they know about us? Because we didn't get a Christmas
well,
card.
they may not know about you individually, but they absolutely, you know, when we say to them, what about FPV? So our policy guy was over at EASA a couple of weeks ago because they're finishing off what will be the European regs. And, you know, he told me they had at least an hour and a half, 2 hour discussion about racing. So you're on the agenda.
Good to hear.
That Heathrow drone might have been Tony.
So if you've got the evidence, let me know.
Just to be clear, while we're here, so the CAA does recognise FPV and race quadcopters as a separate thing to what is being classed as drones. As in, when we say drones, we're talking about people that can go into Maplin and pick up a Phantom and just fly it. So we're saying that the CAA does recognise that they are sort of two separate things, kind of thing.
Well, there's many separate things, I would say, you know. So when we say drone, because most of the people we speak to are Joe Public, the media, whatever, and, you know, if I start talking about FPV to a journalist, they'll go, what? So
you are triggering a few people in the chat. It's a quad, not a drone.
Yeah, but
it might be a tricopter.
Yeah, again, you know, if I'm talking to you know, somebody who's buying whatever you want to call it from Maplin, they know it's a drone. You know, if I said to somebody walking out of Maplin who's just bought a Bebop or whatever, have you bought a quadcopter? What's FPV? They'll look at me pretty blankly, 99% of them, and go, well, I came in to buy a drone. And that is my prime audience that I talk to. But from what we do as an organization, you know, as I say, we're involved with cities that want, you know, micro drones flying around monitoring things, to people who are looking at the equivalent of a military drone to move cargo around that ultimately at the moment is flown by large airliners. You know, if you look at East Midlands Airport, Atlanta Airport, every night they have hundreds and hundreds of movements by airliners that have no passengers in them. Potentially those could be drones or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. And I mean, is there any quite a few people in the chat are kind of pointing out, trying to separate out there's the model aircraft flyers, and then there's the kind of the FPV racers, and they're not seen by either of those groups as being the same people, but still with the model aircraft and the quadcopters are going to be very similar from the view of general aviation. So I can't remember where I was going with this. I've lost my track.
I think as well, if you think about model RC flying in general, it's been around for 50 years.
That's where I was going.
and it's not really needed to change. If you want, I mean, I've been flying for 27 years, and I joined a club because that was the only way that you could get into it back then. Because otherwise, you know, you couldn't fly you couldn't get these ready to fly things with GPS. You crash straight away.
Yeah.
So there's been things in place through the BMFA for years and years for model
He
flyers.
meant years and years, not years and years. Sorry, he's northern. Sorry,
That's okay. So I think there's a lot of people upset that because they've been following those rules. The BMFA have their A and their B test. They have examiners, and the reason that they put those in place is because there was no sort of official thing in place, but they've kind of become a standard for clubs.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people are agitated that just because someone can now walk in and buy a Phantom, that they've been flying for 27 years and now got to.
But what can't they do now that they could do 27 years ago?
No. What I'm getting at is if any sort of like legislation has to change, or they have to maybe take a test where they've already taken a test through the BMFA and stuff like that. So
yeah, but certainly I think when we speak to government, when we speak to EASA, they're well aware of what the difference is and what those guys can already do. Okay. You know, in aviation, there are lots of things that you have a law, you have a regulation, and then you have exemptions. There are lots of people who are exempted from things because they either have another qualification or because their whole area of aviation is exempted. You know, it's for us as different lots of drones are no different to the way we deal with lots of different types of general aviation private flying, you know. So when I say general aviation private flying, that stretches from a paraglider where a guy has strapped a lawnmower engine to his back and has a paraglide wing, up to a Gulfstream and a Learjet executive jet. And everything in between. You know, we may say general aviation private flying, but as an organization, we're used to dealing with all those sectors. You know, we have about 50 odd general aviation associations that we deal with to cover every single little bit. There's the Historic Aircraft Association, there's the Light Aircraft, you know, it goes on and on and on. So different bits of drones are nothing unusual for us in that aspect.
So if some new legislation came in that, okay, you're going to have to take a test, or you're going to have to have a license to, say, fly a DJI Phantom, would that possibly be exempt for all the people that for years and years have gone down the BMFA route and have taken the tests? That, I think that's where we were sort of going.
So it could be. We don't know yet. Okay. And absolutely, that test, it could be sitting in front of a computer watching a 2-minute video and answering 5 questions.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, nobody said this test is going to be something you have to spend hundreds of pounds on in a whole day.
Yeah.
You know, it's literally, the government has said, you know, they would look at compulsory education. And if you look at actually what, you know, so there has to be a cut somewhere of what's included and what isn't. And, you know, absolutely, surely we could all sign up to the fact that we want the person that is buying a drone as a toy for Maplin to realise that flying 600 feet off the end of Heathrow runway is a stupid idea. And, you know, because at the moment there are people buying things from shops, from online or whatever, who just don't understand that. They don't get it. So, you know, we do need to get to those people and tell them those things.
Yeah, I see. I think people hear the word test and instantly relate to a driving test or something like, you know, that's something that you can pass or fail.
Yeah.
And I think that probably got blown out of proportion for sure.
Yeah. I mean, also you think about what's realistic. So if you're talking about suddenly, I don't know, 100,000 people that have to do this test and register. If it was, you had to go and stand in a field for a morning and be with somebody and actually they'd sign you off. I mean, that may not be realistic anyway.
Well, you'd have to pay someone, and I think that's what people are worried about, that you'd have to pay someone to do that. Therefore, you'd have to pay to do the test. And
yeah,
these are all things that we think about quite often.
Yeah. Well, that's understandable, but I wouldn't, in my list of things to worry about, if I was you guys, that wouldn't be at the top of my list.
What should we be worrying about then?
Nothing. He's saying
so if I wouldn't, So, absolutely, we, EASA, others are looking to make your lives as easy as possible so you can carry on and do what you want to do. If I was you guys, I'd be more worried about access to land, landowners, neighbours, that kind of stuff. We see so many local authorities banning drones in parks, so many landowners that don't understand. So, if you're talking about flying outside, I know you guys can operate indoors as well, but if you're talking about going outside, those are some of the things I'd be looking to get out there and educate people about, and try and show to them that it's not an issue. I think we're at the stage with local authorities. When I was a kid and I wanted a skateboard, it was absolutely, you could not go into a park or a local area and skateboard because you were going to knock over some granny, and it was all a disaster. And now we have skateboard parks in parks. It's about having that journey and that conversation. Why can't we have FPV racing circuits in parks? That's the kind of things I think if I was in that arena I'd be pushing for and working for, because the rules may not change. If you do need to sit a test, it might take you 5 minutes online, but if you've got nowhere to fly, it's all pointless.
I don't know if you've seen as well, but DJI recently introduced a test on their app, and if you skip it 5 times, it won't let you fly. Did the CAA have any involvement with that, or is that just something that
that was something they did off their own back? I think they obviously have things, as do the shops and the retailers, as being responsible. If I was them, I'd get really annoyed if I was DJI, because every time there's an incident with a drone, the media show a clip of a phantom. Regardless of who it is, what it is, or whatever.
No such thing as a bad publicity. I don't know what you're talking about.
But I know they get annoyed by that kind of thing, and being the market leader for that, bought from a shop, I don't know what I'm buying, consumer drone, if you like, then they need to protect themselves, as do the retailers.
Do you know what I find really scary is like the amount of people that buy them and then give them to kids. Like I saw like last year. I don't know, Frank. Can you hover your finger over the mute button in case I go into dangerous territory? I like last year there was like this fun thing to do. Well, I say fun. All right, we're slightly sick, but flyaways. People getting the new drones at Christmas, and they have a flyaway, and they don't know what they're doing. So like you type in hashtag lost drone on Twitter, and there was someone who posted like their screaming 10-year-old, and they bought them a Phantom. Like they spent $1,000 on a drone, lost it in the first 10 minutes. And I'm like, what are you doing? Plus, I wonder if they'll adopt me. Like, wow, like I definitely don't get £1,000 spent on me for Christmas.
Yeah, but then that's where, that's my job to try and get out to those people. And we did a lot of stuff over Christmas with retailers trying.
Well, the leaflets.
Yeah, trying to get
them. Give us enough. Really didn't. You need like a fat stack.
Yeah. We've got a lot, don't worry. But I mean, like DJI are now putting them in the boxes in China. Maplin and Mankind and Carphone Warehouse have actually signed up to make sure nobody leaves their shop without one. So it's all things like that. Yes, you're absolutely right. If you're gifting, we did a kind of thing like, some research before Christmas about how many grandparents were thinking about buying one, and it's millions to pass on. So yeah, that is a big target audience for us, because they're the people that don't understand, and quite rightly, they've never been involved in aviation. Their only involvement in aviation might be going on holiday every year, and they don't understand that their drone can fly way higher than that Medivac helicopter that's coming through. And it's not just collisions either. That's the thing as well. It's knock-on effects. So, if you talk to people like the Medivac helicopter pilots, they are some of the top-notch guys in the world at skills. The equivalent of your FPV world champion, they are that for the helicopter world. But if you put them in a situation at night, they're desperately trying to get to somebody who needs like life-saving medical attention. It's at night, it's foggy, or it's bad visibility. They're looking through their night vision goggles. You know, a drone nearby them is the distraction that they don't want, that could trigger something else, even if it's not that close. You know, it puts them off, it disturbs them. You know, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, and also
that's what worries me.
Casualty didn't do us any favors.
No. but then the Casualty scriptwriter would never have written that if they didn't have examples to put in their mind of things that, you know, might happen or had happened or they'd seen happen.
It was a plastic bag. It wasn't a drone. You know that.
Well, we're always really clear. So if you look to what we say unconfirmed reports, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And until we have evidence that a drone was involved in an incident, we will never say that it was a drone.
Can I read a funny... Frank, did you see that comment in the chat?
Which one? I hope you're not talking about the one from Dynamite Girl.
Yeah, it was. That made me... Damn it, I so want to say that out loud. Has Jonathan got access to the chat? You want access to the chat?
No, probably not by the sound.
It's not that bad. It wasn't offensive that much.
Not to you, anyway.
I've got a question, Jonathan. Just a personal one. Do you fly yourself?
What?
It's a good question.
Fly what?
anything aviation.
So, I've done air traffic control. I have flown light aircraft, but not very much because I get airsick. Bizarrely, I do have a couple of drones. I've got a couple of micro drones. Like you, I'd love somebody to fund me £800 for a nice drone, but with a 9-year-old, a house, a mortgage, etc., that doesn't happen, I'm afraid. But I have been out with guys. So when I first started on this work, I went out with a school and spent a day flying Phantoms and Inspires. I was out with Unique just before Christmas as well at their new place near Romford. Out with the guys there were really helpful, really good, and we went flying then as well. So one of the first things I did when I started on this was to make sure I had actually flown a drone. And yes, I have, but my micro drone doesn't have GPS, so it hits the fence more than anything else, I'm afraid.
See, guys, we need to get some goggles on him, get him into FPV. And then I've done FPV. So we went to Farnborough Air Show when the FPV guys were there, and we went to.
Actually,
I think you did.
Yeah, BFPVRA.
That's it. You were, and we went to Ali Pali as well to the racing league. So the guys that were organising that, we went behind the scenes the day before and to the actual event as well. So seen it in action, yeah. And of course the drone show as well, where they have the FPV racing as well, where we've been.
Yeah. So just a thought that I saw in the chat about people having sort of flown model aircraft for 30 years odd. And I think what you were getting at earlier about, you know, sort of having us regulating ourselves and with the DJI leaflets and all this sort of thing, and the test that Andy was talking about on the DJI app. It all sounds like it's kind of trying to catch up with sort of historically, like the model aircraft has just been sort of difficult to fly, and you've needed to join a club just to have somewhere to fly and have someone to teach you. And now these drones are so easy to fly, you know, you can just buy it from a shop and so
give it to a 10-year-old.
Yeah, and give it to a 10-year-old, and so it's not, and it doesn't crash into the ground in 2 seconds. Yeah. It flies off and carries on flying. So I guess kind of what we're trying to do is technologically reinsert that self-regulation back from now that it's so easy to fly.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're about risk. So we only regulate and want to do things where there is a risk, if you like. If the risk doesn't exist, we don't want to be there because there's nothing for us to do and we shouldn't be doing anything. If we're a good regulator, we shouldn't be getting involved in regulating things where there's no risk. But you know, at the moment there is perceived to be a risk, and that's why we're in the space, if you like. If I equate it again to general aviation, where we see responsible bodies that can take on work that we would otherwise do and do it for their community better and cheaper, then we let them do it. So you know, there's a body called the British Microlight Aircraft Association, which, you know, looks after a huge amount of what goes on with microlights as far as approving the types and looking after the regulating their ongoing upkeep and all that kind of stuff. We completely devolve that to their own organization. So the precedent is there for those kinds of things to happen. It's, you know, it's not rocket science, but people need to show they can do it and that they're a responsible body, etc., you know, and then it can happen.
Yeah. It's been mentioned as well. I mean, after talking about the risk, I mean, there has been the report that was done by Kineticum, supported by Balpa and I think the DFT, about the you know, the effect of quadcopters on airline windows and on small rotorcraft and all this sort of thing, and about how much damage it would do to those. And then there's been a lot of questions in the chat and other questions on Facebook and elsewhere whenever this has come up about, is there been any look into like the probability of this happening? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've looked at probability quite recently. So we weren't involved in the research to actually look at the impact on the windscreens or whatever, and we've looked at probability as well. And yeah, of course, it's pretty low, the probability. But I come back to the point of, in reality, what am I most worried about? What I'm most worried about is the things operating at low altitude. You know, if you look at the tail rotor of a helicopter, it's so fragile. You look at the parachutist, the paraglider, the microlight pilot, they've got no protection. It is them, you know, and it might just be, you know, we know, you guys know better than me, you know, stick your finger in the whirring blades of one of your FPVs, what happens, you know? So imagine that being a parachutist's face.
Are there a lot of incidents with like big birds flying into those open copters and the smaller helicopters and stuff?
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, so that's probably where it's coming from, I guess, because I mean, there's nothing you can do about birds, obviously.
Well, there is, but yeah. So certainly around airfields, they do bird management.
Sorry, Tony.
Yeah, they do bird management around airfields to look after it. You know, so but yeah. That's so yeah, if you look at traditional aviation, that's what they equate it to. They equate it to a bird strike, if you like, and large airliners are certificated, they're made, and the engines are to actually withstand a bird strike. So, you know, absolutely an A320 going into Heathrow, if it ingests a couple of seagulls in one engine, it can fly perfectly well on the other engine to be able to come back and land. But if you did that with a helicopter or a light aircraft, they're not made or designed to withstand that, and you know, and they look at it in the same kind of way, you know. So you know, a bird flying into a tail rotor of a helicopter or into a light aircraft pilot's face or something like that, it's absolutely going to be catastrophic, and that's the way they look at it from, you know, and they're the people operating at the low levels as well, you know. So the Medivac helicopter around London quite often goes below me in my office. And you know, that's where the drones are going to be, you know, maybe not in central London, but anywhere. You know.
Have you tried working underground? Gotcha. No, I've got two things. I've got some questions for Andy and Andy, or Frank and Andy.
Hello.
Do you guys, what you guys, because like you guys have been in the hobby, your steep learning curve, do you miss it? Do you miss? You can't really ask Andy RC this because he reviews TAT, but Frank, do you miss like the steep learning curve or drones, or do you prefer like?
I haven't got past that. I'm still on it. Seen me fly.
Yeah, I kind of miss it because like it gave me something to do, but I don't know. Like,
What
and
do you mean
also
by
help.
steep learning curve, Jack? Because I always find that there's a new technology that comes out that I have to learn, and I always find like I'm climbing it. You know, I mean,
no, but you know, it keeps the newbies out. You know, that sort of, you know.
I think the biggest challenge is programming the flight controllers. From what I see in the comments on my reviews, a lot of people would just like a copter that they could just buy in one piece, not have to plug into a computer to get it working. And I think probably that's probably the biggest hurdle for a lot of people, is the getting around the programming side of it.
Yeah, but do you miss that buffer of like, because I often wonder about Tony getting into this hobby, because like if I was the BMFA, I would have been like, you know, you got the A test, you got the B test. I'd especially design the C test called the competent test and be like, you do realise he can't walk upright. Don't give him a drone. You know. I'm hoping he'll come on after that joke.
That's what you're trying to get him to come
on. Baiting him. Come on, Tone.
Baiting him.
Yeah. So also I've got a bit of a comment for you, Jonathan. I really like the under illuminated glass vases in the back room there. They look quite nice.
That's my greenhouse.
Bruce, if you're listening to this, Bruce Simpson. No, carry on, Frank. I'm out of questions.
I was going to say about with your sort of role with the educating all the various people involved. Have you had to, or are you involved at all in kind of letting the police know what the rules are? Because I mean, I know that's been a question of quite a few people. Like, do the police actually know what the rules are for drones?
Well, they should do. I mean, they're the enforcing agency in the UK, so they're the people that have the responsibility to enforce drone law like they do any law. It doesn't matter what the law is. That's their job. But yeah, I mean, in reality, you know, they've got a lot of very important crimes to work on and protect people about, and you know, it's just another thing that's been given to them to do. So there will always be that. You know, and it's relatively new to them too as well. So if you talk about the average policeman out on the beat and someone stops him in a park or whatever, you know, of all the things he's got to take in and learn, it's just another thing that adds to it, and it is relatively new for them as well.
But do you have to like you know, liaise with the various police authorities and sort of let them know like this is what, you know, it is, so that, you know, do they ask you? I mean, how do they learn?
Yeah, so I mean, there are focal points that we speak to for the police. It varies from police force to police force what their interest is and how involved they are. Obviously, you know, they are a big commercial user of drones themselves. So, you know, a lot of them have drone units now that, you know, that I think they pull on to help with sort of like enforcing education within the rest of the police force as well. But yes, we do try to bring them into the fold and, you know, let them know what's going on.
Do you send out more leaflets?
I do.
Good.
All that will teach them. No, but I do worry that you know, like some dog walker will just you know, call it in, and the police will come over and they'll kind of have like the back in the day sus law, and you know, be like, well, you've got equipment that could be used against terrorism, and then just immediately take them off you, just to kind of like deal with the situation whilst they kind of like review it or like look over your stuff. And what do? Do you ask for a receipt? It disrupts your day. Will you get your stuff back? You know, like how far can they go?
I guess that's for the police to answer. That's up to them. You know, I mean, I don't know what their rights are. I mean, they're just enforcing the law like anyone else. But you know, it's really something that that they need to educate themselves about, so they actually, you know, do it properly. So.
So I guess another question that Jack's just posted from one of our listeners: how do you get your, you know, information in order to make decisions about the risk? I mean, there was the report that you know, that was by a different group of bodies. How, when you're assessing the risk, where does the information come from? Because we don't know what risk is. You can't ask us.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's one of the things as well with a relatively new industry as well. You don't have that historical data to judge from, if you like. And obviously, we've not had in the UK a collision with a drone and a light aircraft or any aircraft. We've had collisions with radio-controlled aircraft and other aircraft, manned aircraft, but not a drone. So we look at things like the near-miss reports that pilots file. We look at what research is around in the world, and then as we sort of like learn more, you can adjust that risk. But say ultimately, also remember as well that it's not the CAA that's deciding what legislation is or what happens. That's coming from the government and from the European Aviation Safety Agency. We can influence them, but ultimately it's those bodies that decide rather than us.
So it's the politicians who make the laws, and it's the police who enforce them. So don't get angry at you.
But so we will do what we can to educate people. Our whole ethos is around evidence and risk. But also there's an element on there of you have to educate and you have to protect, and ultimately we need to protect those that need protecting, whether that be a passenger on an airliner or an air ambulance helicopter pilot. They need protecting.
All right. Yeah. Frank, have you got something?
I was just going to say another question about so you sort of liaise with the police and hobbyists and general aviation and everyone else. With the media, do you have do they ask you questions
all the time? Yeah.
Do they actually listen?
So, I mean, the media have an obsession with drones, and they have for years. It is one of their bête noirs of the moment, if you like, which is great from the fact of getting the idea out there and getting more people used to drones and getting people aware of what drones can do, because the media have the appetite to be out there. But the downside is they have the appetite to talk about absolutely anything to do with the drone that's not good, if you like.
Yeah, they always seem to take the negative spin on them. You never see a positive drone thing in the media.
I don't know. Did you look at the BBC homepage this morning? BBC News homepage this morning?
What did it say?
They had a big video bit about the Intel drone show in Las Vegas last night.
Which our very own Adam Juniper has some lovely photos of, and I'm sure we'll try and drag him on here when he's back in the country.
But we do deal with the media a lot. I do a lot of interviews, and we try to be absolutely fact-based and fair. So if you listen to what I say when I talk to the media, I absolutely always put forward the positive side of the drone world as well.
Right, you just trod on a landmine. Ready? Bruce Simpson, if you're listening to this, please email us at letsdroneout@gmail.com. So what do you think then? The whole truthfulness and, facts and that. What do you think about the testing that turned out to be a lie of a drone hitting the windshield of a airliner? Yeah,
but is it a lie? Why? So we weren't involved in the research.
Andrew.
And I haven't seen the full research myself, so I'm not really in a position to comment.
I feel really bad for Jonathan, because it feels like we're ganging up on you.
That's all right.
Good. This is what happens. Welcome to Let's Drone Out.
No, honestly, I've been a press officer for 28 years, and dealing with the national media. So you guys fine, don't worry.
That's not our intention.
Scared of us.
What we want to do is have like a dialogue between us, and that's But these are the kind of questions, the negative questions that we think about all the time. So it's not that we're ganging up.
No. But I still keep coming back to, even if we say that the chances of causing a serious incident with an airliner are small, then I keep coming back to that's not my real. If you stop me and say what's your real issue, My real issue is the other aviation users, if you like, that don't have that protection of a huge airframe and an engine that's built to take bird strikes and ingest bird strikes and shut down safely. You know, most light aircraft have one engine. You know, most private pilots, you know, most microlight pilots don't have an airframe around them. They might just be flying out there with a helmet. An air ambulance helicopter with its tail rotor on the back that might be hovering dead still 20 foot above the ground.
And then one of these comes along like this.
Yeah. So, you know, don't get drawn into just thinking about airliners and the fact that one of those Phantoms isn't going to bring down an airliner. That is not one of my prime safety concerns. It's all the other airspace users out there that don't have that protection.
The reason why we haven't hit anyone is we're not trying hard enough. You know, put some more effort in of like, you know, please don't ever quote me on that.
That'll be on the news tomorrow.
Yeah.
Drone user jokes that he's not trying hard enough to bring airliners down.
Yeah. Well, we can't.
Russell Brand look-alike and sound alike.
Not Russell Brand.
Russell Brand tries to bring down airliner.
I changed my name to Russell.
I really want to pick up on something you said earlier, though, that, you know, if you were really worried, you know, it wouldn't be your top of priorities to worry about the new prospective drone bill and any drone registration and drone regulation that might be coming in, but that you'd be more worried about having somewhere to fly. I think with Dom in the chat, a bit I saw her earlier, with, you know, arguing with Hidden Valley, trying to get that going again. I think we can all relate to that. But yeah, it would be good to keep in touch with you. And
absolutely. So look out for the European regs. So European regulations will probably come out in the next few months in their final form, and probably 2 to 3 years implementation before they become law, if you like. And it's up to the UK government how much of that they take as well. And then you've got to look for the drone bill sort of probably in a few months' time as the first sort of draft cut of that, and then they're the things you can sort of get your teeth around and work out exactly what's happening. But, you know, I say what I said earlier, when we speak to these people, they are well aware of the hobby users, and as we see it, they have every intention not to stop you doing anything that you're doing now.
Yeah. There's just another question that's just popped up. Do you know, with the registration, if that does happen, who's going to be running that? Is that going to be the CAA, or is that going to be some other group body? What's going to happen with that?
Yet to be decided. It will be decided by the government, by the Department for Transport, as to exactly what form it takes, whether it be drones that are registered or individuals that are registered, how it works, who does it. Those are all things that the government needs to decide.
Hang on. Right. So what I've done is I text Simon Dale, if you're familiar with that.
I know Simon. He's provided me with 80 drone kits that we've given to local schools.
And what I'm going to do is, because I'm not the best at reading stuff, I am just going to
paste it for me to read, I bet.
Yeah. Have you got your phone there, and is it on silent?
It is here, and it is on silent. While I'm finding this, there's a huge number of questions all popped up. What about Brexit? Hashtag Brexit.
Don't forget about Zero.
Yeah.
So Brexit, government hasn't decided yet whether we will keep the EASA system when we leave. It is possible there are other countries that do EASA, Norway, Switzerland, that aren't part of the EU, but that's to be decided. And again, it's something the government will decide as part of all of its kind of negotiations.
Yeah, I think the EASA can stick them somewhere. That sounds very sorry.
So the message I've got here so this was from Simon, was it then, Jack?
Yes, Simon Dale. Yeah, the lovely Simon Dale. Thank you for always fighting for FPV.
Am I allowed to read this out? Has he given you permission?
Yeah, totally. Look, I can. Hang on. Look,
it's okay.
I asked. Hang on.
Okay, so hold on, let me read it.
I was just going to say, no, look, I text him, hey, Simon, we have the CAA on at the moment. Want to join if you're free? He texts back, just arrived in Spain, mate. And I was like, no problem, mate. Enjoy. Any questions / something to read out? Also, did you see the Facebook thing? Thanks for fighting for FPV, by the way.
So what he said was, did you see the CAA risk study that came out 2 days ago? The chance of a drone even being in the proximity of an airliner is 2 in every million flight movements. The chance of it hitting it are even less. And then there's the redacted kinetic study, which shows that we were told by Rob Curry on 27th of February 2017 at the CAA, no drone penetrated an airliner windscreen. I am meeting DFT head of drones next Friday about this stuff.
I think Jonathan sort of already covered that, hasn't he? When it sort of said that airliners aren't what he's worried about. It's the lower stuff. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, it's kind of what I said. So yes, I've seen the proximity paper we published, and that's right. That's what it says. But if you read the next paragraph of that proximity report, it goes on to talk about helicopters, light aircraft, lower airspace users, and it's not just it's distraction to airline pilots as well, so, and knock-on effects for air traffic controllers. If you look at a drone, the Gatwick drone incident last year in the summer that led to lots of airliners being diverted, that huge increase for air traffic controller workload to suddenly think about 20 flights he or she has got to move into different pieces of airspace, and it's that knock-on effect that can cause other incidents, and that's what you want to avoid.
I wonder if Jonathan's aware of what TBS did. Aren't they using or they're trying some kind of avoidance system?
But this is the, I can't remember what it's called. I'm sure Jack will find out in a second. It's the system that I think is not legal in the UK, but is across Europe, particularly in the Alps, for gliders.
Is it one step up from trying to get hawks and eagles to take drones out of the sky?
It begins with a D. I know what you're on about. Yeah, it's
there are many different systems out there.
Yeah.
So the way this whole issue is going to resolve itself is kind of a couple of things, really. There's going to be the education stuff, which has to carry on. There's going to be technological stuff on the drones, geofencing times 100 or whatever that is. And then there's going to be ground-based systems to keep drones away from sites of whatever importance for the people that can knock off all the systems on the drone, if you like, whether that be a prison or whatever. And those are the three things that will come together to sort of give you the nirvana, if you like.
Tina says TCAS-like system, it's called. Basically,
TCAS.
Yeah. Basically, what they did is they took an FPV wing and fitted this system, and it avoided it. Was it a glider?
Yeah. It's not TCAS so much. It will be ADS-B and out, just to throw even more acronyms at you. So TCAS is what airliners have. Even light aircraft, not many light aircraft even have TCAS. TCAS is really involved, and basically the two aircraft talk to each other individually if they get too close, and then instruct their pilots, coordinate and instruct their pilots to avoid each other. That's what you get on airliners. What you're probably more likely to see is something like ADS-B, which is a much cheaper solution.
Yeah.
And gliders have FLARM. They're all very similar systems.
FLARM, I think that might have been what they were using.
Yeah. But FLARM is only in gliders. You don't really get that in anything else.
It needs to be surely it just needs to be one system.
Yeah. But if you talk to light aircraft owners, so I say to light aircraft owners, another thing you can learn from drones is the fact that for £800 they've got GPS, collision avoidance, or to fit all of that into a light aircraft, you're talking tens of thousands of pounds at the moment. There's lots of light aircraft that fly around that don't even have a radio or an electrical system. So, you're talking about bringing them up to a certain level as well, if you're talking about everybody separating by ADS-B or FLARM or whatever.
Don't worry, we're trying to bring Tony up, educate him and stuff. It's fine.
But yeah, so following on from what I said earlier about having somewhere to fly, I've got a quick message here from Steve of Drone Racing Manchester. So they've just reopened yesterday this year, and hopefully they'll be able to keep going as long as loads of people keep going and flying there. So I'm going to play this, but thank you for coming on, Jonathan, and hopefully we can have you back at some point.
Absolutely. So, you know, once we have some more stuff on the UK drone bill or registration or the European stuff, then absolutely very happy to come on and talk about that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for coming on. I will
pleasure.
Play us out with this.
Thank you.
Right.
Hello, my name's Steve. I'm one of the owners of Drone Racing Manchester, which is based in Atherton. We provide track facilities for drone racing pilots. For the future, we're looking to accommodate the walking market who will be able to walk in off the street and try drone racing for the first time, similar to those that would maybe do go-karting. We're currently charging £5 per hour to bring your own drone and fly there, but you can also book sessions for £12 for 3 hours, and also private booking sessions are available as well. You can find out more about us on droneracingmanchester.com, and even better, you can find us on Facebook and get messages to us. I'd like to say thanks to Let's Drone Out, and particular thanks to Velocidrone for their support, and the Yorkshire Drone Racing FPV guys and the Drinkwater Drone Racing guys, who without their support we would have found things very difficult. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you guys down at Drone Racing Manchester.
Just a quick note to the end of that as well. They've got a GoFundMe campaign going to try and keep the doors open. So if you can't make it down there anytime soon, you can bung them a fiver and keep them going until you can.
Awesome. I need to get myself up there. I do. It's not far from me at all. Be cool to. We should have a Let's Drone Out visit up there. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, that sounds good, man.
It's a bit far for you guys, though.
Yeah, I know, and like, you know, will we fit in the door because we have to wear so many clothes? We haven't got that northern gene.
Also, all these northern comments, you're probably just going to get mobbed when you get there.
Yeah, I know. They've built a wall to keep us out.
Yeah. That was awesome of Jonathan to come on. I felt bad for him because it's kind of like we're all ganging up on him. And that wasn't the intention, but no. I think we just all have these questions all the time building up, and yeah, it was great of him to come on. It was great to keep that contact as well.
Yeah.
So Richard Harwood in the chat just said, is it CAA registered? Drone Racing Manchester is indoors, so you don't need to worry about any regulations, because I really don't think any aviation authority is going to care about you flying indoors. Apart from maybe the FAA, maybe.
Yeah. Also, we didn't swear as well. So if we keep doing this, we could just upload
we'll have
this
cheaper
episode.
Editing.
I know, yeah. Wow. I know. Don't forget, guys, Patreon. Tony's meant to be pushing this. Let's Drone Out /Patreon. Also, Tony having a go at me as well. Link in the chat description or whatever.
Richard Warwick asked, is there anything like that Manchester racetrack in the southeast? No. There is Drone Base, which you can get in contact through the Kent Quadcopter Race Club guys, I believe. And KQRC, that's right, isn't it? I'm pretty sure that's Drone Base. And then there's also Popham, so Drone Zone over there. So depending on where you're about, those are probably your best bets.
Patches, what size are you for a hoodie? Did I actually type that? No, I just wrote incompetent 7.
I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions though, but I think the main gist from that is just try not to worry too much. I mean, it's difficult when it's all over the media all the time. New drone regulator, like you know,
but it's the same thing. You know, we tell people not to worry about drones. He's saying don't worry about the regulations. We're saying we're never going to be flying up with airliners. He's saying we know we're not worried about you flying into airliners. We're worried about you crashing into a parachutist.
Yeah.
So I think we're all on the same page, and it's just media muddying the waters.
I think that's what it is. It's just the media, isn't it? You know, just getting like they're selling papers if they can put dramatic things on. Your drone will will bring down an airliner and stuff like that. It sells papers.
Yeah.
And when he said, "Do you read BBC News?" I don't read any news because it's all nonsense.
It's not healthy.
No, it's not healthy. Someone who you don't know has died, and it doesn't affect you anyway. But be scared of it. That's the news in a nutshell.
Yeah. The thing is, right, I appreciate him being like, yeah, don't worry, and like, we know you're not going to do blah 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 blah, you know, and be an idiot with a drone. But the thing is, does the Ministry of Defence know that?
Well, it's not the Ministry of Defence organising anything either. I mean,
who did that big scary bill?
That was Kinetic, Department for Transport, and BALPA.
No, but the sort of thing that we're gonna make everyone register, government bill.
Oh, that's
that one.
Well, that's
not transport. Yeah.
That was the.
Do they know we're not idiots?
Well, yeah, they've said as long as there's they're going to nominate groups in each country to kind of deal with the modelers. So, you know, as long as you're signed up with BMFA, then they're going to be able to kind of say, there you go, you can fly. You're right.
I think as well, you know, he's talking about these autonomous drones for services. I think they're going to be such a bigger nightmare for them than we are. We'll just be like, they'll forget about us as soon as they're having to deal with Amazon and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, true. Yeah. Everyone who's listening, we're joined by Tony wearing an RC Explorer top.
Hold on. Let me present you.
Say something, Tony. Hello, Tony.
Hello, everyone.
I am Tony.
It's not a coincidence, Tony, that you decided to opt out when the CAA.
I think you're just enjoying the show.
To be honest, I just like, I kept thinking I'm not chatting very much, but it was just nice to listen to.
Frank, you need your own serious podcast. I think you need serious FPV talk, because like the thing is, you could really, you know, with stuff like that, you could really have a good show without us to. Us bellends are just dragging you down, mate.
Yeah. Well, you asked 20 minutes.
Concise
you stepped in.
Questions, and you know, didn't offend anyone. You didn't once mention his LEDs. You know, like, oh, man.
Well, you know, I'm just trying to. Like,
why do you lower yourself?
Chat, like, I know everyone in the chat is like, you needed to be harder on him. You're giving too easy a time, but you know.
I don't know. You could see the sweat come off him. He didn't move around a lot. He didn't have a back to his chair. Do you know what I mean? You could hear his wife in the background. He's probably gone crying to her. Oh, I would.
He seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah, I know. Like, he definitely didn't deserve being on Let's Drone Out.
Stop presenting me, please.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know.
Carry on talking. You don't need to.
You know what I mean? Like, not one person was like, you do realise you're going on the FPV podcast where they talk about whether the Earth's flat or not. You know, like. Just, I mean, would you?
Yeah.
Is it worth chatting to Ofcom? I prefer Ofcom not knowing who I am.
Too late.
It would be interesting. I would be interested to know what.
You know, could you get Simon Dale, Ofcom, and the CAA to kind of?
I've asked Simon Dale to come on before multiple times.
Yeah, I know.
He's not interested.
He'd rather go to Spain.
That's fair enough.
I'd rather go to Spain. Why would you guys want Ofcom, as in to talk about radio frequencies?
Yeah. Why can't we use 1.3? Not everyone wants to send satellites or weather balloons up. And
in the UK, though, that is a pretty big thing: satellites and weather balloons.
Yeah, and then the other side of it is, you know, like, can't we just borrow it for an hour? And you know, and the other thing is like 25 milliwatts. Come on.
It is crap 25, isn't it?
He said the C word.
Not if you got a decent antenna.
Yeah, but you have to get a tracker and everything. I know, like, Tony's been on 3 milliwatts. He's been very compliant this week. Do you want to tell him about your dodgy VTX?
Well,
I say really legal VTX.
No, someone repaired my VTX, but I just found out what was wrong with it. My, you know, is it UFL connector?
Yeah. UF.L connector.
That had snapped off.
Or you can call it as well. There's a different name. It's like, hang on, let me find it.
Well, we don't need to Google it. Just call it that.
I found it interesting.
Off, and you've stolen my tester now. And when I tested it, it was only putting out 3. Yeah, I couldn't
F4.
see. I couldn't see where I was flying, so I've changed it today. So hopefully
MHF.
that'll work.
MHF U.FL. Is it this? Like, why is there several names?
Because
I think no, that's
Different
the
sizes.
the MHF is what size it is, isn't it?
I hate
yeah.
the fact that they clip on and clip off.
Well,
I
that's
want
why.
them on permanently and
Look,
That's why Jack's got some toothpaste lit for you.
Oh,
Yeah,
wicked! You got the toothpaste.
Yeah, and there's also a little. I'm now selling little bags of it.
Oh my god! You're actually you are real, aren't you? You're putting that in a bag and.
No, I put some in a bag for Bradders, and then he
That
That
left
looks
it.
like something you'd take to the doctors. That.
Yeah, I mean,
This
I
came
thought
out
happened
of
to
me.
me.
Please
Yeah.
help.
I think you've got an idea there, Jack. If you need me to put a spreadsheet together to work out how much you should sell it for, let me know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I do want to go on the European FPV Let's Drone Out road trip. You know,
I'm
if I can make
definitely
money
going.
selling Claflaff.
I'm
K
booking myself on that.
1668.
Andy, you need to come with us.
Oh, it's what's wrong with the UK? Do a
I
tour
will-
of the UK.
No,
I might
man.
drug you to
It
make you
rains.
more compliant, unless
This
with
might
your
be the
consent.
last year we can do it without like stupid amount of paperwork.
Yeah, and visas and travel insurance and
Oh, yeah,
Theresa
that's
May greeting us at the border, being like, "You're not coming back in."
I thought,
You bloody donos.
I thought it was interesting what he said about like the BMFA and potentially being exempt. Nothing was set in stone, but what would you guys all join? Because the BMFA is great because it also offers insurance. So if you're into racing, you need insurance for racing, right? Would you guys all join? I'm a member anyway. So
I was. I need to renew my thing.
I need to
Oh,
renew
yeah,
mine as well.
Yeah,
It's
note
only-
to everyone: renew your BMFA membership.
It's
It
30
won't
quid
accept
a
my
year.
credit card. It's doing my head in for some reason.
It's 30 quid a year, and like you're insured up for like, is it £1 million or something?
plus
Plus.
legal fees plus whatever else is crazy.
Yeah.
So I think if anyone who's serious about FPV, I think if there's an exemption for like being a member of like an organization like the BMFA, then I think that would be awesome, because then we all just at 30 quid a year you're insured and you don't have to take any tests. You're exempt for all these
There's
things.
also like the BMFA. There's a lot of very sensible people. You know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nonsensible people there as well, but
Oh
Well,
yeah.
us.
I mean, there's, yeah.
Once we've renewed.
I mean, they have been a lot more open to FPV. I mean, they were really against it when it first came on the scene, but now they're holding Goggle Fest every year.
yeah, that's
so
a complete turnaround, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's the same thing that's happened with everything in model aircraft forever. When helicopters came out, they were really not happy with them. They were banned everywhere, and now they have their own sites.
I think that's a good idea, because if you're just gonna
banning helicopters?
No.
Please specify better, Andy.
The whole joining a group sort of thing, because if you're buying like a Phantom from Maplin, right, you're not gonna have a clue about like the BMFA and safety. Therefore, you should have to, I don't know, maybe take a test or anything or something like that to make sure that you're being safe. But if you are a part of the community that we are and join like a body, maybe not even the BMFA, but like just an FPV group, then and you're part of that can be exempt, then I think that's a good way to deal with it, because it's sort of set as a way to separate the hobbyists from the
the guys who fly phones into prison, or the guys who like bought something from Maplin. Yeah,
exactly. You're not going to get them joining the BMFA. I mean, they might do if they find out that gets exempt, but you'd have to put, if you're willing to put 30 quid a year down as well. I think that tells you you're serious.
Would the BMFA really be up for supporting a drug smuggler? Do you know what I mean?
I think that might invalidate your insurance.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some sort of clause.
But they wouldn't do it anyway, is what I'm saying. They wouldn't.
But yeah, like
go
Richard
for it.
Warwick says in the chat, FPV UK insure members as well.
Yeah.
Simon Dell's been fighting for FPV things for a long while, putting petitions together and stuff.
You need to add .org on the end of that. So
Yeah.
it's fpvuk.org.
So if you're a member of that organization, you're serious about this. You know, you want insurance, you want to be safe. Therefore, you're probably following a lot of rules and not being dangerous and things.
Tony's got a story how his insurance got his Phantom not confiscated from him.
What story is that, Jack?
Where you went away and they were like, "There's nothing stopping you from flying that on the tarmac," and then they saw that you had insurance. And
Yeah, just flash them your card. That's all you need. Yeah.
Oh, what the Gatwick? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always keep my BMFA card on me. Sorry.
What about the planes that fly under 400 foot? They need telling off. I was flying the other day and a plane flew over me lower than 400 foot.
I think this is what Bruce was getting at in his video, is that like there's a lot of people who misbehave in general aviation. I mean, every other video he posts on his channel is a plane that's a pilot that's ignoring NOTAMs and things like that. You know, notice airmen.
It was like last International Drone Day.
International Drone Day.
Yeah, we put out NOTAM and they're like, "Oh, what's this?" And then they fly to us really low to find out what we're doing. You know, it's almost like a beacon of like, "Here, have you seen this?" It's like a little, you know, like, where shouldn't you go to go?
It might just be the novelty of like us putting out a NOTAM of like up to what was it? I think we put up to like some stupid number, up to like 20 odd drones in, you know, up to 1,000 feet, you know, whatever. And it's like, and people were like flying along, doing barrel rolls and dicking about in the air.
I think it's like Jonathan was saying though. A lot of these light aircraft don't have the means to find out about those NOTAMs. Like they've got nothing.
Were definitely there. They were like doing aerobatics above where the NOTAM was.
They were like, "Yeah, we'll enjoy this."
We talked about that FLAM. How many episodes ago did we talk about it? And someone was making one, and they'd made it like that big. I mean, that can go in anything and be very, very cheap, can't it? So why can't
Funnily enough,
just do that?
First heard about that at the same event that I met Jonathan, which was Farnborough Air Show, where I was with the BFPVRA a couple of years ago now, I guess. And there was the guy there who designed all the product design stuff for Spectrum, so, you know, transmitters. And he had been working on for ages these electronic conspicuity, I think is the kind of generic term, but FLAM, ADSB, all that kind of stuff, and making tiny ones, or making stuff for light aircraft, and then made it even tinier. And it's kind of a continuation of that, I think. But
surely by now it should be that big and 10 quid, and you could put it on a paper plane if you wanted to.
Yeah, the issue is finding a system that the CAA can use, or anyone like that.
Yeah, but then it pushes the price up to get it certified and everything. And then
it's certification, but there's also like Jonathan was talking about, we have so many millions of things going around in UK airspace that it's trying to find a system that works for everyone well enough that doesn't like need a huge server farm that's impossibly fast. It's
a bit like how we can't settle on KISS, beta flight, or race flight.
Yeah, like we can't even agree on protocols for receivers. You know, we can't agree on
that same thing.
The actual transmitter protocols. We can't agree. We can't even agree on like the VTX frequencies.
Well, we can. Ofcom just told us.
But I mean, do we use F bands? Do we use E bands? Or not F and E because they're different, but F and R or whatever. So Brad has asked in the chat, what's the point of getting insurance? I do know people who have made claims on insurance. If someone crashes into a van because they're trying to teach someone who decides to be a bit of a tit and flies in the opposite direction because he's being difficult because he's a little kid, and you don't flick the trainer switch buddy box thing back quick enough, then you can make a dent in someone's car, and it's very expensive to replace that panel. But if you have insurance, it sorts it out for you.
Also back in the day of glow fuel planes, people used to get killed a lot. Not in the air.
Can you stop saying that whilst recorded? Can you?
What?
Oh my god!
It's all right, Jack. People don't fly IC anymore.
Yeah.
No, people used to get killed on the ground. It's true though, and I'm just saying.
Jack's worried about the news tomorrow doing a mashup of like tiny little clips of the show tonight.
Yeah, I know.
Being like Jack being like flying in Gatwick, someone got killed. Blah, blah, blah.
It was Tony. Tony's on BBC radio.
It used to cover that like for life and damage like that as well. You know, it's an important thing to have. I've always had it,
especially if you're flying to someone's face.
Yeah. BMFA, please, if anyone listens to this and you're high up in the BMFA, auto renew on insurance, please.
Oh yeah,
for
definitely.
the love of, if fpv.org can do it, it's not hard.
These aren't fun.
Great.
Oh,
I need to do mine, man.
The whole like membership renewal thing, like even doing it manually, is an absolute pain in the ass. It's not easy.
Is there a phone number? Can I just phone them?
I'm sure you could phone them.
Find me the phone number. I'll phone them tomorrow.
I've got the phone number here, but I won't read it out on air.
Yeah, totally read it out.
Let's phone them now.
Okay, I'll phone them now. Andy, what's the number?
I'm gonna put it in the chat, and I'm gonna let you read it out because I'm getting in enough trouble doing this.
What is it? Someone really high up in the BMFA?
No, it's off this. It's off this card.
01162440028.
There you go. I didn't have to say it.
No one's going to answer it at this time of night.
No. I wouldn't have thought so.
Right, should we call it there, guys? It's an hour and a half. We haven't sworn.
There was a good mark of just about the hour where it goes silent for a bit after the DRM clip, so you can cut it there if you want.
Wow. I won't listen to that bit, but Tony, remember that. Thank you. You've been listening to Let's Drone Out. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you to all our Patreons who are supporting us. Tonight you've been joined by Andrew or /Frank.
Hello, goodbye.
Andy RC.
Bye-bye, thanks for watching.
My beloved wife, Tony.
I'll be on from 8 p.m. next week, I hope.
You look really tired, man.
I'm stressed, bro. Stressed.
Tony's been having a bad day, so please support Tony.
3 years.
Like, subscribe, Patreon thing, like Facebook page, join Facebook group, email things into us, whatever. Yeah,
can I have one favor? So if you type in, everyone in the chat who's doing this, if you go to let's go to SoundCloud. So I'm going to post a link in the chat. Can you guys review us on iTunes? If everyone in the chat just goes there and does that now, then that helps boost us and could put us in for an award. So stuff like that, and gets us in the ratings. And not enough people.
Have a wooden spoon.
Yeah, not enough people have rated this podcast to give us information on it. So I'm gonna post this on the chat. 9 people have done it, but
we need to put that on like all the podcasts. We've got like thousands of people listening all around the world to the podcast.
Well, it helps.
And the Patreons, you guys are really helping us so much with the editing. The editing takes ages. I've done 3 hours of timestamps today.
It is horrendous what me and Tony go through. We've got our own the links in the chat. But if you could go onto iTunes and rate us.
You know what we've forgotten to say?
Yep. What?
Who we've got on next week?
Who have we got on next week?
Joshua Bardwell.
Hey,
Josh is back.
We need to remind him though.
Is that next week? You say?
Yeah.
Yep.
Dynamite Girl's going to join Patreon next week. Yeah, next month. Thank you. We might just about be able to clear everything, so me and you don't have to do any more working in the evenings and then.
Oh man, we are
and...
literally Tony in the day listens to it, sends me timestamps on our own WhatsApp group message, and then I have to read through them and then edit the podcast, then go through it. It is the worst.
It starts off me speaking nicely, and then it gets down to the bottom.
Yeah,
you say beep, you beep, you beep, idiots.
I know, and then just the hate for each other grows, and then you just hear Tony just die inside. So cool. Thank you guys, and good night.
Cheers. Peace.